Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janarandana Yashodanandana Vraja Janarandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Shri Radha Madhava ki So welcome to our Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class. We continue to read from the 4th canto, chapter 5, text number 10, entitled The Frustration of the Sacrifice of Daksha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So we're going word by word. Yas Tvantakale Vyupta Chata Kalapaha. Yes, since they're all in one line, we can actually right away read the whole shloka. Yas Tvantakale Vyupta Chata Kalapaha. Yastvantakale vyupta chadha kalapaha. Svashula suchi arpita dikka chendraha. Svashula suchi arpita dikka chendraha. Vitatya nirjati uditastra dordvajan. Vitatya nrityati udidastra dordvajan. Ukchata hasa Uchata hasa stanayitnu binadik. Binadik. Uchata hasa stanayitnu binadik. Yastvanta kale yupta chata kalapata. Svashula suchi arpita dikka chendraha. Vitatya nrityati uditastra dordvajan. Ukchata hasa stanayitnu binadrik. Yastvanta kale vyupta chata kalapaha. Svashula suchi arpita dikka chendraha. Vitatya nrityati udastra dodvajan. Ujata hasa stanayintu binadik. Yastvanta kale vyupta chata kalapaha. Svashula suchi arpita dikka chendraha. Vitatya nirjati udidhastra dordvajan. Ukchata hasa stanayitnu binadik. Matajis. Yastvanta kale vyupta chata kalapa. Svashula suchi arpita dikka chendraha. Vitatya nrityati udidastra dodvajan. Ukchata hasa stanayitnu binadik. Yaha. Who? Lord Shiva. Tu. But. Antakale. At the time of dissolution. Vyupta. Having scattered. Chata kalapaha. His bunch of hair. Svashula. His own trident. Jai Shri Gaunitai ki jai, Jagna Baldev Subhacha Devi ki jai. Suchi on the points. Arpita, pierced. Dikkajendraha, the rulers of the different directions. Vitatya, scattering. Nrityati, dances. Udita, upraised. Astra, weapons. Doho, hands. Dvajan, flags. Ukcha, loud. Atahasa, laughing. Stanayitnu, by the thundering sound. Bhina, divided. Dik, the directions. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. At the time of dissolution, Lord Shiva's hair is scattered, and he pierces the rulers of the different directions with his trident. He laughs and dances proudly, scattering their hands like flags, as thunder scatters the clouds all over the world. Purport. Prashuti, who appreciated the power and strength of her son-in-law, Lord Shiva, is describing what he does at the time of dissolution. This description indicates that the strength of Lord Shiva is so great that Daksha's power could not be set in comparison to it. At the time of dissolution, Lord Shiva, with his trident in hand, dances over the rulers of the different planets, and his hair is scattered just as the clouds are scattered over all directions, in order to plunge the different planets into incessant torrents of rain. In the last phase of dissolution, all the planets become inundated with water, and that inundation is caused by the dancing of Lord Shiva. This dance is called the Pralaya dance, or dance of dissolution. Prasuti could understand that the dangers ahead resulted not only from Daksha's having neglected her daughter, but also because of his neglecting the prestige and honor of Lord Shiva. I read the next two shlokas because we are somehow or other, like last time, yesterday was no class, so therefore the shloka is there. Just read the, let's try the Sanskrit. Armashayitva tam asaya techasam manyuplutam duniriksham prukutya Karala damstrapir udasta bhaganam syat swasti kinkapoyato vidhatu. The gigantic black man bared his fearful teeth. By the movements of his brows he scattered the luminaries all over the sky, and he covered them with his strong piercing effulgence. Because of the misbehavior of Daksha, even Lord Brahma, Daksha's father, could not have been saved from the great exhibition of anger. Bhav evam udvigna trishotyamane janena dakshyasya muhur mahatmanaha utpetur utpatatama sahasrasho bhayavaha divi bhumau chaparyak. While all the people talked among themselves, Daksha saw dangerous omens from all sides, from the earth and from the sky. I will enter this purport a bit later. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Garamayam Dadati Svabarantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vagishayasya vadhane lakshmiryasya chavakshasi yasya the hridaye samvit tam narasimham aham bhaje pralada hridayaladam bhaktavitya vidaram sharatindurujim vande parindra vandanam harim. At the time of dissolution, Lord Shiva's hair is scattered and he pierces the rulers of the different directions with his trident. He laughs and dances proudly, scattering their hands like flags as thunder scatters the clouds all over the worlds. So we're here in the middle of the exhibition of Lord Shiva's anger. I guess most of you will be familiar with the story, or unless we can just really shortly summarize. Starting from the offense Lord Daksha did to Shiva, there was a big disturbance already there, though the sacrifice that happened at that time continued. Then later, the wife of Lord Shiva, Sati, was also offended by Daksha, by neglect. She showed up at a sacrifice that was to be performed for the pleasure of Vishnu. And in due course of the whole offensive behavior of Daksha, Sati gave up her body. And now Lord Shiva, being aware of that, decided to kill Daksha. That's really short, the story. And we here at the point where he manifested a great demon, which is described in text number 11, the gigantic black man that bared his fearful teeth. By the movements of his brows, he scattered the luminaries all over the sky, and he covered them with his strong piercing effulgence. Because of the misbehavior of Daksha, even Lord Brahma, Daksha's father, could not have been saved from the great exhibition of anger. So the verse before, verse 10, is describing how actually Shiva is the great destroyer of the world, of the universe, and in particular his dance, the Pralaya dance, is mentioned. And how this is actually causing the rising of the water level in the universe for a partial dissolution. And we will hear from the 5th canto, there's the glories of Lord Anantadev, how actually here Anantadev is instructing Lord Shiva how to dance. He's actually empowering Lord Shiva to manifest also this angry mood. And we will hear how Lord Anantadev himself bears this anger. Last time when we spoke, we also addressed this issue of anger in spiritual life, and that we can see that anger is not a taboo, it's not something to be avoided. It's a matter of how we can employ it or use it, because anger will be there, must be there. We mentioned how Arjuna needed also to be angry to fight. He could not fight without anger. Or how anger is also naturally there as a sign that shows us that something might be wrong or unjust and so on. Anger is not a wrong emotion. It might hint to something that is wrong. But the anger itself is not wrong. How we deal with it, that might be a different story. How we express anger or not. Because simply denying an emotion is not in a mode of goodness, that's ignorance. I ignore it, I cover it. Tamas means covering something. Might be any other emotion, because the emotion is something that shows how do I relate to myself, to people, to things. The emotion is a mirror of that level of relationship. And for example, if things go well with people, devotees and so on, then my feelings, usually I'm pleased, I'm satisfied, peaceful, happy. And why do I feel that? Because I sense my relationship is well. So the emotions confirm, oh, things are good. And at the same time, if I feel frustrated or bitter or angry, that might show something, oh, well, there's something not working. It's not, something is not right on this level of relationship. I can feel this with myself and others. If it's about myself, it might be I don't live up to my expectations, or I compromise too much, so I feel dissatisfied, or I don't use my potential, I feel frustrated or empty. You know, so with others I might feel, as I mentioned before, with the anger and dissatisfaction on the other hand. So let's look at the anger as something that is naturally there and actually originates from the Lord. It's not something only conditioned souls have. Obviously there is anger. Here is Lord Shiva's anger is in motion or in action, and what he does is he picked one of his hairs and said, laughing like a madman, threw this hair on the ground, and this most terrifying demon was manifested, ready to devastate the sacrifice of Daksha, ready to kill Daksha. And ultimately we know he did. He beheaded him, and later he got the goat head, but this comes later. So we also last time spoke how the anger of Shiva is different from the anger of a conditioned soul, being based, for example, on envy or pride. We spoke about how Brahman since he is connected or like situated in a mode of goodness, and is said in the Bhagavad Gita, the mode of goodness comes along with a sense of pride, because this person becomes more knowledgeable, capable to arrange his life, and also purified. And then there's pride, and pride gives rise to anger, because the more proud a person is, the more easier to offend he or she is also. The more humble a person is, the less, or the more difficult it is to offend that person, because the person has less expectations on others. How should they behave to me? So we pointed out that actually the issue in the emotional part is not the emotion, but the attitude it relates to. You know, if a person, Shiva was not coming from a place of pride, because he's the most detached person, he's very transcendental. For him it was about justice, and I would like to focus also on that today, how this what is happening here is not about simply frustrated lust, as we in the Bhagavad Gita. You know, if someone has desires and they're not fulfilled, the person becomes angry, you know, frustrated, and then becomes inimical. But here it's also about dharma, protecting what is right. And for example, we hear also Maharaj Parikshit, when he was hearing that Kali came there to and mistreated the bull immensely. He came and very angry, took his sword and said, I'm going to kill you. But not because he personally felt, you don't obey me, you know, I'm the king, what are you doing? But he felt, he violates dharma, and it's my duty to protect dharma, and the anger is the tool for punishment. And there is need for punishment because the conditioned souls, they are prone to act in the modes of passion and ignorance, which makes them very, very unreasonable often. And words don't do the job sometimes. You know, so therefore punishment must be there, some aggression to make people, to wake people up, sometimes literally. So we look at anger from this perspective, and we can see Lord Shiva has also some expansions. In the last weeks and months we heard a lot of Shiva Tattva, and he also has his own Avesha avatars, like also Brahma can have. It's an interesting aspect. And one of his expansions is Durvasa Muni. Durvasa means by literally difficult to stay with. There's one conversation where actually Parvati told Shiva, like, you are Durvasam. You're very difficult to stay with because of also his immense anger. And he said he used to make this anger once, manifesting it as Durvasa Muni, and planted it, so to speak, in the, or like it transferred it in the womb of Anasuya, the wife of the Rishi Atri. And from there Durvasa Muni was born. And he's a very, they say, ill-tempered person. He's similar a bit like Lord Shiva. He's easy to please and very easy to offend. And he, for example, in his childhood already, he tended to just burn people with his glance when they did some little offense. He burned the king, and so it was difficult also to get him married and so on, because he was very difficult to stay with, literally. So he's a manifestation of Lord Shiva's anger, and at the same time he is always referred to as the sage, Durvasa Muni. And we might wonder, well, how can he be a sage if he's so prone to anger? Because at the same time what he intends is also to protect Dharma. And we see that in the story of Ambarish Maharaj. This was the apparent intention of Durvasa Muni. He became very angry because Ambarish Maharaj seemed to violate some codes of Dharma. And he felt, I have to punish you to inflict, or like to create justice. This was his point. And there's written here, in the, we find this in the 9th canto, chapter 4. It's written, O best of the Kuru dynasty, after he drank some water, King Ambarish, meditating upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, waited for the return of the great mystic Durvasa Muni. So we know the story. It was actually Ekadashi. Ambarish Maharaj was fasting, and he was concerned, like, if I don't break my fast now, I will not be successful in my fast, because it has to be during that time period. So he felt, although he had a guest, the etiquette was to wait for the rishi and then to serve him first and then eat. So, but somehow or other, like Durvasa Muni was out to perform his rituals till noon time, and so what to do? He was conflicted with one value against another. And After executing the ritualistic ceremonies to be performed at noon, Durvasa returned from the bank of the Yamuna. The king received him well, offering all respects, but Durvasa Muni, by his mystic power, could understand that King Ambarish had drunk water without his permission. Still hungry, Durvasa Muni, his body trembling, his face curved and his eyebrows crooked in a frown, angrily spoke as follows to King Ambarish, who stood before him with folded hands. Alas, just see the behavior of this cruel man. He is not a devotee of Lord Vishnu. Being proud of his material opulence and his position, he considers himself God. Just see how he has transgressed the laws of religion. Maharaj Ambarish, you have invited me to eat as a guest, but instead of feeding me, you yourself have eaten first. Because of your misbehavior, I shall show you something to punish you. As Durvasa Muni said this, his face became red with anger. Uprooting a bunch of hair from his head, he created a demon resembling the blazing fire of devastation to punish Maharaj Ambarish. So here you see a parallel of the pastime. Also Durvasa Muni picked some hair, manifested a demon. But here the mistake was he wanted to punish a devotee unrightfully. So that's the downside of anger, and Durvasa Muni is not exactly Shiva himself, he is an expansion, and obviously his anger has some downsides. He's not necessarily as fair or like judging as fair and objective as he believes himself to be. So that is what can come with anger, that we, instead of become righteous, that we do what is right, become self-righteous. We feel like we are the standard for right and wrong. We don't so much necessarily objectively consider what's right and wrong, based also on logic, argument, shastra, authorities, and so on. So this is the challenge or the difficulty if one gets too much into anger. One becomes self-righteous, like Durvasa Muni also did. And we hear how his demon could not harm Ambarish in the least, because Vishnu immediately sent the Sudarshan Chakra, killed the demon, and then the Sudarshan Chakra was after Durvasa Muni, and he ultimately had to ask and beg forgiveness from Durvasa Muni, from Ambarish Maharaj. So we see his intention was more like, okay, protect Dharma, but he was himself too much into the self-righteous, proud mood, and like gave too much weight to his anger, which led him to make a mistake. So therefore, also in spiritual life, one must be careful to estimate what is this anger about and what is the proper proportion that I may express it or how I may apply it. You know, as it is said, if another Vaishnava or Krishna or Guru becomes offended or even attacked, the Vaishnava should be like fire. He should not be tolerant, like, and peaceful. He should employ anger. But also this has to be in proportion. You know, we cannot just go, let's say, someone comes and said, I don't care, Srila Prabhupada is nonsense, that I go and cut his head off. You know, that's very disproportional. You know, but we might respond to it saying, yes, okay, please sir, leave. This is obviously not a place for you, and show some attitude there. You know. So this has to be in consideration, but just that we don't think, oh, I'm not allowed to be angry at all, you know, or I should not be angry. This is what we talked about also last time, that this is very tricky. Because as we said before, like if I see something is not right, unfair, someone is not treated right, I also actually have an obligation or duty maybe to interfere, depends what my role is. But this is what the anger is telling me, something got to be done, something has to be changed, something is not right. So here also Lord Shiva saw like what Daksha was doing was completely off, violating the laws of Dharma. His own daughter, he treated in a way that she left her body, and then he poses as a great devotee, Prajapati. It was said, like Srila Prabhupada used the translation, governor of all living entities. And there was quite an expectation how he was supposed to behave. And because of his misbehavior, his daughter committed suicide, so he felt this is enough, so he has to be punished. State an example for that. And this anger we see also in Krishna. when he comes. He kills the demons, or like he expresses anger, and he sometimes is described how Krishna turns, also his eyes red with anger, and how he then insults the demons. We have some exchanges how they, taunt each other when they start to battle. You know, and Krishna gets in a mood, also in an angry mood, and tells quite some sharp words to the demons, and tells them, "Now I shall punish you for your nonsense." Of course, when he punishes, it's literally something that elevates the demons, or like the souls who are demoniac, because his intention, first of all, because he's Krishna himself, there's no passion or ignorance within him, so he's pure sattva, so actually he's lifting the curtain of Maya for them by destroying them. But the point is, the intention with it is to make them aware you do something wrong. This is the point of Krishna's anger, also of Shiva's anger, of Durvasa Muni's anger, though Durvasa Muni was not so capable to estimate how proper is his anger. And I said before that we hear shortly about Ananta Shesh, which is described in the 5th canto, because here the verse 10 is describing how Shiva is dancing his Palarya dance, the dance of dissolution. And it said, in the last phase of dissolution, all the planets become inundated with water, and that inundation is caused by the dancing of Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva gets instructed by Lord Anantadev, who is residing, it said, very low under the planetary systems. You know, so he's there. And in the 3rd verse of the which chapter is it? It's the 25th chapter, the glories of Lord Anantadev, is described. At the time of devastation, when Lord Anantadev desires to destroy the entire creation, he becomes slightly angry. Then from between his 2 eyebrows appears three-eyed Rudra, carrying a trident. This Rudra, who is known as Sankarshan, is the embodiment of the 11 Rudras, or incarnations of Lord Shiva. He appears in order to devastate the entire creation. And Srila Prabhupada writes some very short but pointed purport. In each creation, the living entities are given a chance to close their business as conditioned souls. I really like that phrase. Close their business as conditioned souls. Like imagine you have some shop, conditioned life shop, it's your business. And when they misuse this opportunity and do not go back home, back to Godhead, Lord Shankarshan becomes angry. The 11 Rudras, expansion of Lord Shiva, come out of Lord Shankarshan's eyebrows due to his angry mood, and all of them together devastate the entire creation. So we have here another example of anger here directly from the Supreme Lord, actually. Though sometimes Ananta Shesh might be a jiva, it's described that also Vishnu might empower a jiva to take that role of Ananta, but generally it's Vishnu Tattva. And here we see he is angry, or becomes angry. And why? Because the living entities immerse themselves in ignorance and do not realize what is the actual purpose of this world. Why has Krishna given this? And when Krishna realizes, or Vishnu realizes, hey, they do not get it, because in the meanwhile, if you look at the intervals from the time of creation to destruction, it's a long period of time, very long, kalpas, and what is then kalpas, and then come the days of Brahma, however, then the month, and then, or in this meanwhile, so many avatars are coming, so many sages are sent, and rishis and all planets, and give the knowledge, always try to encourage and enlighten the jivas, turn away from matter and go back to Godhead, practically. So, but when they don't do, and at some point he says, okay, that's enough, and he gets angry, destroys it. Like sometimes, as we see also with people, you might first, also the steps of a kshatriya, like how to solve an issue. I said first is diplomacy. He doesn't immediately go and takes the sword and fights. First there's diplomacy. And then there's even bribe. And Krishna also does that somehow, or he tries to encourage the souls by some religious systems that also give benefits. But ultimately, if the intended purpose is not being reached, at the end there might be violence. Because this is the language then the ignorant person gets better at the end. Sometimes words, as I said in the beginning, do not have this effect. So then he destroys material nature, because he gets angry, as Prabhupada here so says, the conditioned souls, or like the jivas, do not close their business as conditioned souls. And a few verses later, verse number 6, he continues. He's saying Lord Shankarshan is the ocean of unlimited spiritual qualities, and thus he is known as Anantadeva. He is not different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For the welfare of all living entities within this material world, he resides in his abode, restraining his anger and intolerance. So he has said at the same time, though he expresses anger, we should understand it as something that comes once really in a long while, but before he actually tolerates a lot of the jivas. And Srila Prabhupada is writing, Anantadev's main mission is to dissolve this material creation, but he checks his anger and intolerance. Yes, intolerance. This material world is created to give to conditioned souls another chance to go back home, back to Godhead. But most of them do not take advantage of this facility. After the creation, they again exercise their old propensity for lording it over the material world. These activities of the conditioned souls anger Anantadev, and he desires to destroy the entire material world. Yet, because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is kind toward us and checks his anger and intolerance. Only at certain times does he express his anger and destroy the material world. So we have three examples: Lord Shiva being angry, Durvasa Muni being angry, Lord Anantadev being angry, Krishna in his pastimes showing anger. So anger is a natural element there, which is not per se wrong. So important is though to understand the nature of the anger, what is it motivated by, what is the message of the anger, and what is the proper proportion and ways to apply and use this anger. Because suppression of anger is simply tamagun, as we said. It's covering it, ignoring it. Sattvagun means to productively use it, as we hear that Shiva is actually seeing something is being wrong. Daksha behaved completely wrong. Durvasa Muni was in a different category. He exaggerated the wrongdoing of Ambarish Maharaj to quite an extent, but his actual intention usually is also to protect Dharma. And then, or like Parashuram is one of these incarnations. He's very angry, and then they tend to, as we said before, like we made this distinction between righteousness and self-righteousness. The very angry person often mixes easily with pride and becomes self-righteous. Then his anger becomes unproductive. But a truly righteous person, like for example also King Parikshit, they apply anger differently. Also Arjuna in battle, when he fights. And the actual verse 12, that was also on the list today, is addressing the dakshas, or the dangerous omens coming from the demon that Lord Shiva manifested. So we can understand actually the demon is the result of Daksha's own wrongdoing. So he faces now the consequence of his own sinful actions in the form of this demon. In general, for the conditioned soul, it's the time factor, devouring just everything, or giving pain, taking away all that what is dear to one, or as Anantashesh destroys the creation. So that's always the response to something. Nothing that happens to us is undeserved. That's an important thing, because usually what also conditioned souls do, they plead victim. Oh, it's not my fault. The way I grew up, the way people treated me, the opportunities I have and didn't have, and so on and so on. Others do like this. And then we have so many ways to excuse ourselves and hope to not get the results of our own decisions. You know, Daksha could have said, yeah, but Shiva didn't behave well. He didn't respect me the way I am. I'm Prajapati. So it's his fault. you know, and so on. But what about ignoring his daughter? You know, what about treating her the way and completely not paying attention that she was in great distress and that he had a duty to protect her, actually. Prajapati, governor of all living entities. So now the demon is like showing this with a very strong message, what was wrong. You know, you destroy the life, your life will be destroyed. It's a very simple, so to speak, Gleichung. I don't know how we say in English, Gleichung. Equation, yeah, simple equation. And here in the purport to text 12, Srila Prabhupada is pointing out, because the word Dakshasya Muhur Mahatmanaha is mentioned, that Daksha is referred to as Mahatma. And Srila Prabhupada writes, in this verse Daksha is being described as Mahatma. The word Mahatma has been commented upon by different commentaries in various manners. Veera Raghava Acharya has indicated that this word Mahatma means steady in heart. That is to say that Daksha was so strong-hearted that even when his beloved daughter was prepared to lay down her life, he was steady and unshaken, but in spite of his being so strong-hearted, he was perturbed when he saw the various disturbances created by the gigantic black demon. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks in this connection that even if one is called Mahatma, a great soul, unless he exhibits the symptoms of a Mahatma, he should be considered a Duratma, a degraded soul. In the Bhagavad Gita 9.13, the word Mahatma describes the pure devotee of the Lord. Mahatmanas tumam partha daivim prakritim ashritaha. A Mahatma is always under the guidance of the internal energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And thus, how could such a misbehaved person as Daksha be a Mahatma? A Mahatma is supposed to have all good qualities of the demigods, and thus Daksha, lacking those qualities, could not be called a Mahatma. He should instead be called a Duratma, a degraded soul. The word Mahatma to describe the qualifications of Daksha is used sarcastically. Prabhupada says so. Sarcasm. So you appear to be something, pointing out you failed actually to fulfill the expectation. Yes, a while ago we spoke that also call yourself Vaishnava, might be Mahatma, however you call it, is a great title actually, and there's a lot of expectation connected with it, you know, and often it's easier to enjoy the glories and the prestige of a given title than to live up to the expectation of the title. So therefore one is advised to be very careful to not decorate yourself with I am this and I am that, you know. So here Daksha's, the chapter is entitled Frustration of the Sacrifice of Daksha. So Daksha thought he could get away with it practically. Because why would he otherwise continue? He thought, yeah, let's go on, I'm anyway. This kind of collateral damage perhaps is still fine, still with things work out. So many people respect me, so many followers I have. And he still thinks, although completely violating the code of Dharma which comes from Vishnu, that he thinks still I can perform the sacrifice for the pleasure of Vishnu. Which shows how like Rajas and Tamas completely twist our intelligence. That although we do something toward the same person, to the Creator, wrong, we think still I can please the same person with the sacrifice and at the same time offending him. You know, it's a bit like, maybe comparison, I steal your money and buy you a present with it. It's like, what? You know, and I think I'm actually a very good person. Alright. Yes, this is what I wanted to speak on today, about the nature of the anger and the application of anger, and that, yeah, and also in our life, in our spiritual life, that we understand there is place for anger. Anger management is important, and to understand that, yeah, anger has a connection also to do what is right or to create justice if there's injustice, wrongdoing. As Prabhupada says in many places, also the Vaishnava should become angry if, for example, devotees become mistreated, Krishna becomes offended, but in a proper proportion. Hare Krishna. Are there any comments or questions? Yeah, we would need, if then, microphone. All right. Wait. Please.
What happens if you subdue your anger?
Switch it on. Is it on? Oh yeah, it's okay.
What happens if you subdue your anger, or like subdue it, suppress it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when you say subduing, then I would say something else and suppressing. When we suppress our anger, the principle is it pushes back in some way. That's with all the emotions. The principle is like repression and counter-repression. So if there's not a direct way the anger can be applied in words, then it finds another way. It might, in some cases, depending how strong people suppress it and how much they get triggered in anger, as we said before, depends on the attitude or mentality of a person, how much this person is even affected by anger. We said before, a proud person tends to be more angry than a humble person because there's different expectations and different trigger points, so to speak. So let's assume a person is actually very angry, but tends to be suppressing it. This person tends to become also passive-aggressive, we say. So it's underlying, it comes there, but not in a direct way, indirect way, in speech, for example, in behavior. But also can manifest in physical symptoms, illness, pains, inflammation. There's also one connection that is made with anger. You know, if your joints, this whole arthritis stuff and all that kind of things, they might be related to suppressed anger. So it's, in one word, unhealthy. It becomes when you suppress things like that. If you subdue it, that's another thing. That means consciously controlling it and deciding when to and how to apply it. And my understanding is when you really manage that, and not just with anger, with another feeling, this force or the power of this feeling is available to you to manifest something. You know, whereas when you repress it, it's somehow there, but it's not available to you. It's kind of rather overcoming you in some tamasic way. So an example could be, let's say you, in a situation, something happens, someone behaves really bad or something is wrong, but perhaps the time of reacting, it's not the best way, because it might even make the situation more explode, and it's maybe a time to remain calm. You hold your anger, so to speak. You consciously decide, I put it aside for now, and then when the proper time and circumstances, then I will apply it, but I consider how exactly to do it. That I'm not just like, that I'm not driven by anger, like just fully come from there and like trigger the other person again to become angry, but like with the proper measure. Let's take some practice. You know, if I'm not used to it at all, well, I might also make mistakes by doing it, but the more you get used to trying to deal with it, the more expert one gets, like with other feelings as well. Disappointment, lust, whatever other feeling. Also with envy, it's an interesting thing. You know, it's also a feeling we got to kind of control and trying to counteract with that. But also with the happiness, the positive feelings, that you don't get carried away, like, oh, everything is so fine, I enjoy, like this kind of, how do you say that? What is the word? I forgot it, this overly, you know, enthusiastic. Yeah, that you also kind of, because the self-realized soul is that he's steady in both. He doesn't get carried away by happiness nor by distress. So he keeps both in a balance and recognizes them and then chooses to respond. All right? Okay. Grant Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai.